Thanks for joining me on another walk and talk. So today I'm now 26 months sober. That's right. Up until now I was talking about 25 months, but now I'm into an extra month, so at the start of this new month I'm now 26 months sober. 26 months sober. What does that mean? Well, it's a day-by-day thing. You take it every day. As I mentioned in my other videos, the 26 months part, it's important and it isn't important at the same time. It's important because it goes to show that sobriety can last a long time, and there are people who have lasted even longer than me, and there are people who haven't lasted as long as I have right now, including myself from the past. But so I've managed to do 26 months. It's another milestone, but it's a day-by-day thing. So should I relapse and reset to zero, that's okay. It happens, and you just take it as a day-by-day thing and start over again. So the importance of the day-by-day element to this is obviously the most significant element. If you're not taking it day by day, chances are you won't make it to the end of the week. Demon alcohol tends to attack on a daily basis, and the way demon alcohol attacks is in two ways mainly, but there are many others. You have to spot them. The first is when things are going great and you think, I can go back to what it was I was doing. And the second one is when things are really bad and you just throw in the towel. So you just keep an eye out for these things, and when you see them, it's easier to deal with them. When you recognize them, it's easier to realize what's going on. So today I'm going to talk a bit about Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm going to start by saying that I'm a ferocious reader. I love reading books. I read everything, fiction, non-fiction. I've been reading since I was a kid, and I even started reading a lot of books that were in the kind of adult section, you know, Stephen King, stuff like that, I mean. And I was reading adult books from the non-fiction section as well, biographies, etc. Even as a young kid, I was doing that. So I would go from the children's section to the adult section, and I would get my parents to help me take out a book from the adult section. That's just because I got bored reading all the books in the kids sections. And I'm still reading today as we speak. Where am I actually when I talk about what am I reading? Oh yeah, I'm reading the fourth book of the Hyperion series. It's called The Rise of Eddie Mayan, and it's written by Dan Simmons, who actually passed away quite recently. So I wanted to finish the series, and so I'm about 200 pages into that book right now. So that's just an example of what I'm reading. And also there's other books I'm reading which are kind of there on my table, which I'm getting through at my own pace, let's say. And so yeah, I read a lot. And the reason why I'm saying this is because one of the best books I've ever read is a book by somebody who calls himself Bill W. That's the pseudonym that they're using. And it's a book known as the Big Book. And you're thinking, what's that, the Bible? Bill W. didn't write the Bible. No, it's the other big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, there's two books that you should know about here, Alcoholics Anonymous and another one called 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions is more like a manual for Alcoholics Anonymous. And Alcoholics Anonymous, the book itself, is more like how Alcoholics Anonymous came to be in the first place. And it's a very interesting story. And of course, it contains a lot of stories about people who are trying to quit. And really, the gist of it is that somebody's looking for a way to quit alcohol, Bill W. And he notices that throughout history, he's meeting lots and lots of people who are trying to quit, and they're not very successful. A lot of them are failing, and all he wants is the right method to do this. And he goes to doctors, and he's been going everywhere, and he can see that other people are stuck in the same rut. Everyone's trying to figure out, how do we quit the booze? How do we give up? That they genuinely want to give up, they just can't, because there's no method or support to actually do this. And so the book goes through things, and how eventually Bill W. learns about a small group that seems to have figured out something that could work. And what they've done is basically involve a higher power. And so it's interesting that this group says, look, it's just a higher power. It's whatever you want the higher power to be. You just need to find one. So it's not really a religious organization. It's an idea, and it's an idea which has function, real function. And so what do I mean by it has real function? It means it's functional and it works. So Bill W. notices that this group, by handing over their alcohol problems and other problems to a higher power, have a huge success rate. And it makes no sense, why should they have this huge success rate with a problem that is just phenomenal, in size? And yet here's this group with this success rate. How are we supposed to take all of this? Atheism is very common. People just simply don't believe in the supernatural. They don't believe in gods. They don't believe that there's some overlord watching over everything who can, do things for you. And there's perfectly logical and rational reasons for why people don't believe. Science is an explanation of the facts using the scientific method, which is the experiment. It's pretty good at demystifying lots of things, which in the past religious people would have treated as, something caused by offending the gods, for example. How can AA possibly work for that segment of the population, which is a significant segment of drinkers? And the answer is something along the lines of, don't fix what isn't broken. And what does that mean? It means that it was functional. This group believed that a higher power could help them overcome their addiction to alcohol. And it worked. And if it works, why do you want to fix it, Now, of course, yes, this isn't immune from the scientific method and psychology and medicine, from investigating how neurologically we might behave when we believe in a higher power. Maybe there's some switches that go on there which aid recovery. That could certainly be the case. But if it works, it works, okay? So while there might be a scientific explanation behind this, that doesn't mean that you should reject the mechanism that is getting you places. So what the group was saying is that believe in a higher power and you're halfway there. Or it's the component that you're missing. And so this formed the backbone of how AA was able to expand beyond the borders of this small meeting, is that there was reasons to take this idea elsewhere, purely as a social experiment. People are desperate to quit, to see how they get on. And sure enough, they started to see the results come back in. that this method is functional and it works, and therefore we're not going to try to fix what isn't broken. We're just going to go with it because we want the end result more than debating how it works. That's really an important step towards quitting something that you want to quit. That you really do have to invoke a higher power, whatever that is for you, and just say, look, take this weight off my shoulders and please manage it for me. And this particular maneuver is extremely helpful towards reaching the goal of quitting, abstaining, not going into relapse, and as part of alcohol recovery. To try and talk more about this, it's probably adding more than is necessary, because it's just that step, which in a way is called a leap of faith. Just a leap of faith to accept this. Now, people can be strong-headed. I get that. I have a scientific background. Furthermore, my background is in biology. I have a good understanding of evolutionary biology. The main mechanism is natural selection. I enjoy reading Darwin. I even enjoy reading Richard Dawkins and others like Ernst Mayr, George C. Williams. Another one I enjoy reading is Stephen Jay Gould. I've got a good book collection on evolutionary biology, let's just say. And I enjoy reading about biology and the history of living things and how they evolve. And some of these writers, in particular Dawkins, has another segue where he talks about atheism. He has books about atheism. And then there are other atheist writers, and I've got the scientific background. Why should I believe in a higher power? And I've read a lot of atheist books, as I pointed out. And the answer is because it's functional. I have a goal. I want to not drink. And this is the method that's worked out. And if it works, it works. And I know a lot of atheists may not like this idea. Okay. Or a lot of people who aren't atheists may be on the fence about this, kind of agnostics. I can understand. Or maybe there's even theists who don't understand why God would want anything to do with drinkers. You know, that's entirely possible as well. Types of deism that would think that God has no influence in human affairs, for example, but there's a God out there. So really, that debate is its own thing, the existence or non-existence of a God. But the thing is that if you want to quit, and you've tried everything else, but not this one where you believe in a higher power, then what does that debate matter to you? It doesn't. It becomes insignificant in your own life. And this is the thing. It seems to me that a lot of these leading voices in the new atheism, that's their job. They're getting paid to do this. They attend seminars, they write books, they have their podcasts, their documentaries. Yeah, they get paid for that. So do religious people. They get paid for doing their thing. So in a way, when you turn this into your livelihood, how you live, then it's kind of hard to back away from that once you're in it. So it wouldn't surprise me if there are atheists who are thinking to themselves, maybe I've gone a little bit too far here. Maybe there is a big camera in the sky, or a guy with a white beard or something. Maybe that could be possible. Maybe I've been a little too hard-headed. But I'm still going to continue on as an atheist because that's how I get my bread and butter. On the opposite side, you have theists who might be in the same boat, going, maybe I've overextended myself here quite a bit in why I believe there's a higher power. Maybe I've said some things about science which, well, based on the evidence, I could be quite wrong. And maybe they want to back down a bit in how far they've gone in what they believe. But they can't, because that's their bread and butter. If it's not your bread and butter, and it's not my bread and butter, then what's it really matter if you were thinking as an atheist and want to quit drinking, and AA says to you, well, you have to believe in a higher power. Just believe in the higher power. Just take that leap of faith. It's not like you're being disingenuous to yourself. It's that you have a goal, which is sobriety. And it's a great goal. It's a genuine goal. And it's a goal which, when you achieve it, you're able to see through that glass darkly and at a life which I believe Jung would call authentic. A life which you can live, which you can't because of alcohol. So is it worth it, that trade-off? And the answer is absolutely, there's no question about it. Because one, it's free. Now, I get that some atheists would say, aha, it isn't free. That's your slippery slope on the path to religious belief. And with religious belief comes baggage. They're not wrong. Religion does have practices. And to be considered in that religion, you're supposed to keep certain practices. So yeah, your life will alter to keep those practices. So in a way, not so much that it isn't free, is that the cost is there, but it's in how you have to alter your life in certain ways. But that is not what Alcoholics Anonymous required for their system to work. I have talked about how it's a day-by-day thing. And I have talked about recognizing the triggers that can cause somebody to relapse. And in a way, that in itself is sufficient for a really good start. So the serenity prayer is quite functional, because in a previous video where I talk about geopolitical problems and how they can influence relapse, I talk about how the serenity prayer helps divide up things for us to reduce our stress, because stress is a trigger for relapsing. See if I can remember how it went again. Yeah. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And in that other video on geopolitical pressures, I showed how geopolitics is not something you can change directly or overnight, but your vote does matter. And that you can change yourself, and you can help people in your immediate vicinity. There's the wisdom to sort of know the difference and how that works. So I highly recommend you look into that prayer, the serenity prayer, and consider it on top of belief in a higher power to help you quit. This talk has basically been very surface skimming when it comes to talking about a higher power and helping you to quit drinking. You only need a higher power that's relevant to you. So why should this work at all? Well, it's interesting. If there is a higher power out there, it doesn't make much sense to be chasing after where that higher power is, to be looking under rocks, behind the curtain, launching rockets into space, going to the edge of the universe if we could, to try and find God. Philosophically, wouldn't it make more sense that a God would find us, given that they are a God? And so I think that this is what Alcoholics Anonymous is indicating people should try, which is really to put your hand out there and say, if there's a higher power, please take my hand. A higher power coming to meet you. Now that is an interesting concept, and an easy one. It's kind of baffling, actually, that so many people are trying to chase a solution, and yet the solution is partially the belief of maybe some of our family members, maybe some of our ancestors, maybe some of our culture, and yet they couldn't see this. And in another video I talk about this. It's called the fog of alcohol. And when I talk about demystification, I literally mean to see through the fog and to see things clearly for how they are. And this is all part and parcel with sobriety. And it's interesting to be able to look around you and see these things. So, what does that mean at the end of the day for us who want to quit drinking and maintain that velocity, that trajectory? And the answer is, if you were up to your chest in atheism and had no belief whatsoever in a supernatural deity, and if you were believing that for most of your life, and you have an epic book collection, you might have even attended debates, you're on the forums, you're as hardcore as they get, what does that all matter at the end of the day if belief in a higher power could help you quit alcohol, something that you've been trying to quit all your life? And the answer is, all of that background becomes moot, absolutely meaningless. It can't serve us, it can't offer us anything when it comes to wanting to quit alcohol. That in order to quit alcohol, you actually have to go down the pathway of quitting alcohol, and whatever works, works. Now, I know that there are some viewers out there who will say, but medicine is important as well. Of course it is. And I've never said that we should abandon science. I've never said that we should abandon medicine. In fact, you should see a doctor within 24 hours of wanting to quit, because the DT's withdrawal can kill people. And it's absolutely essential that you go to the doctor and say, "Doctor, I want to quit. And I'm going to be doing that within 24 hours. Or I'm already 12 hours into it. I haven't had a drink today." And the doctor's going to note that, because how people react, it's different with everybody. And your history means absolutely nothing here. And how much you're drinking can be irrelevant as well, because things can change. As you get older, things can change as well. Nobody knows. And so definitely watch out for that, because it can kill you. So I'm not saying that we have to abandon science. Far from it. I'm not saying that we have to abandon medicine. That would be absolutely absurd. All I'm saying is you might have to abandon this idea that you have no belief in a higher power. If you could switch that to belief in a higher power, then I think you're going to see results. And again, this is coming from somebody who has an understanding of atheism, like the a true background in it. It's a bit like the no real Scotsman fallacy. What I'm trying to say is I'm not just flippant about it. That I did read a lot of books over a long period of time. I did follow the documentaries. My background is in science. I still read science books. I still enjoy engaging in science. My thinking is still scientific. I've never abandoned that. And the thing is that a lot of science has nothing to say about a god or a supernatural deity or anything supernatural, because that's not what science deals with. Science deals with empirical facts. It's a natural science. But then again, there are areas where religion does say some things about science, and it's obviously got some things wrong. It's not that everything gets simplified, that once you believe, suddenly everything makes sense and it all adds up. Not at all. Not at all. That's its own journey. That's another video maybe. And I just want to thank you for being on this walk and talk with me. Please do like and subscribe, and write anything you want in the comments below. So have a nice day, and talk again soon.